Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. First thing, health update again. Because apparently the health updates never end. So remember earlier this year where I talked about how I was having a root canal because I had like a tooth that had like a lot of decay in it, apparently. Turns out that root canal has failed, and I think it's because the inside of my tooth is... So, first of all, I have a abscess in my tooth now. The thing that I literally got the root canal specifically to avoid. And now, what is worse is that he explained that basically, due to it, the only option left was extraction. The thing that was suggested to me by the first dentist, then there was like, money-wise, and also this guy who just said that the extraction was, like, because he said, like, the root canal was the first option because due to the fact that it would just be one tooth and it was, like, really close to the other teeth and blah, blah, blah. And also, thing about, like, the first priority is to save the tooth. And sure enough, it didn't work out, so now extraction is the only option. In the meantime, I was prescribed a medicated mouthwash, and this Thursday is when I go to see them for the consult, and then after that, it's whenever they find a schedule to slip me in to do the extraction. On the plus side, if this place is good, then I'll actually go to them in case I need to get my wisdom teeth taken out. Because this dentist suggested that I take my wisdom teeth out, but I haven't really been having any problems with my wisdom teeth. But I'm also approaching the age where they're like, if you haven't gotten your wisdom teeth taken out by now, then it's going to be an issue if you need to get them taken out for you in the future. I don't know. I still got like at least 2 more years left before that becomes an issue. So yeah, that's the health update there. Hopefully I don't have like the biggest complications of an infection by then. Because I would greatly like to, at the very least, see the end of this month. Specifically because this month's going to have a couple of bangers coming up, so be on the lookout for those. And this is one of them. Before we get into that, let's get right into the news. First, major W for everybody. Henry Kissinger is dead. Now, there are a lot of things I could say, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of them have kind of been said already. You know, I could go over all of the very bad things Henry Kissinger has done over the course of his entire career, but we all know, or if we don't know, we have an idea of who he is. Well, not all of us, because there was apparently this very prominent this very prominent Twitter page that comments on politics, especially foreign affairs, and for some reason, they're making it very abundantly clear that not only did they not know who Henry Kissinger was, but they're now going around basically saying, like, taking that as a stride of pride. When it's just like, wait, you genuinely did not know who Henry Kissinger was. Like, not even in a like, not even in any sense, you knew who he was. And then there are other people who are also taking this, like, on Twitter, like, there'll be random people that are running to, like, replies going, like, Henry Kissinger dead, and like, you anti-Semite, you just looked him up today, found out he was Jewish, and now you're shitting on him. It's like, but are all of you seriously fucking brain dead? Is this literally, like, I really do not understand. I genuinely do not understand. Like, I guess I have to say, I do understand. People are just stupid, and they'll comment on things without knowing anything. So, of course, they're genuinely people who comment on foreign affairs, talk about foreign affairs relentlessly, and have no idea who Henry Kissinger is. But I'm generally like, even in a vague sense, you don't know who he is? Like, not even in like a, like, I don't care if you're like, oh, he was I don't care if you don't, like, I genuinely don't care if you didn't know that he was the Secretary of State under Nixon, or if he was a cabinet minister at all. Like, I genuinely don't care if you didn't know that the specific, like, oh, he served from this year to this year to this year, or like whatever. I don't care about that. But like the fact that you don't know, like, he's a prominent politician who had a hand in the United States foreign policy for a long period of time, and then we have some people who are being fucking stupid, the so-called anti-imperialist left that are literally like like filleting fucking Henry Kissinger. I guess I can't call them left because these guys are literally not left wing. They're fascists, but they claim to be left wing, but also not claim to be left wing. You know, the MAGA communist types, Jackson Hinkle and Samir Khan. They're literally like, R.I.P. a legend, Henry Kissinger, because Henry Kissinger, like, in the last, like, 2 years was literally just like, you know, Ukraine needs to do blah, blah, blah. And it was like being anti-Ukraine. And so I was like, so he's great now all of a sudden. Then you have the traditional conservatives that are just like sucking off Henry Kissinger. Then you have the traditional liberals that are going, well, okay, Henry Kissinger wasn't really that good, but we have to acknowledge some of the good things that he did. And then they cite him supporting Israel, which is like, I thought you were supposed to cite good things he did. But it's like, they cite vaguely, like, oh, he helped get China and United States into having good relations. Like, who cares? He helped us get good relations with China and détente with the Soviet Union. He also organized U.S. bombings of Cambodia during the Vietnam War. The entirety of Operation Condor, U.S. involvement in the 1973 Chilean coup. He gave a green light to the Argentina military junta during their Doherty War. He supported Pakistan during the Bangladesh Liberation War, despite a genocide being perpetuated by them. Like, the one or two things that he did good does not overstate the hundreds, if not millions of people he has killed. And then he continued to try and stick his nose into U.S. foreign policy. Like, oh, actually, here's what we should do. There were some presidents that were nice enough to be like, fuck off. Like, a funny thing that happened is that Joe Biden apparently released a statement about Henry Kissinger and, like, his death. And his statement was literally just, like, a very basic thing where it's like, Henry Kissinger was influential in United States foreign policy. Me and him disagreed on a lot, but he kept his viewpoints heard. Jim McGovern's statement was very good because it's just like, yeah, fuck Henry Kissinger. Like, I genuinely would have liked a member of Congress to literally just tweet out, fuck Henry Kissinger. Like, there was one tweet that I thought was kind of fun that I saw it because I was reading, like, an Evo Morales tweet about it, but it was from a Spanish Sumar candidate. They said, in response to Henry Kissinger's death, se viene un golpe de estado en el infierno, which translated means a coup d'etat is coming in hell. Which, you know, base, obviously. But speaking of the left, there is one other faction of people tweeting stuff about Henry Kissinger's death that is a little bit interesting. It is a subsection of the left that is going so far as to say that Henry Kissinger, like, we shouldn't be celebrating Henry Kissinger's death because there's nothing to celebrate. Because, like, yeah, he did his things. Like, him living to 100 years old isn't something to celebrate. To which I say, what the fuck what? I genuinely don't understand. It's like, yeah, no shit. It's like, the ideal date of death for Henry Kissinger would have been May 27th, 1923. Hell, I would have accepted it day before he enters the Nixon administration. Like, yeah, the ideal date of death for Henry Kissinger would have been before he did any of the bad things he did. Like, there would be no point to celebrate if he died the day after he did the bad things he did, or when he was 50, or when he was 60, or when he was 70, or when he was 80. Like, it wouldn't have mattered to like, the reason why we're celebrating is just because bad man dead. Like, literally, who cares? Anyway, speaking of dead, George Santos's political career is dead because he's been expelled from Congress. First off, interesting thing is that apparently two members of the House, who are Democrats, voted to keep him in the House. One of them was Nikema Williams. I don't know who the other one is. I think his last name is Scott, I'm pretty sure. But he's from Virginia, I think. Very interesting thing, because one of the big interesting things about George Santos is that he is the only Republican to have been expelled from the United States House. Very interesting. All the other expulsions were of Democrats. Now, I've seen some people on Twitter that are, like, sad that he's expelled. Like, oh, but we liked George Santos. He was funny. In which I say, legitimately, fuck you. Like, guys, you're just like, yeah, we like it when the corrupt politician does corruption. We like it when he votes against, you know, all these progressive policies. Yay! Yay! It's like, what? I genuinely do not understand this. Why are you all so fucking stupid? It's the same people that were like, yay, Alex Jones funny. when Alex Jones harasses those people whose children died. It's funny. You guys are the ones that are actively encouraging bad behavior because people know it gets their attention. Genuinely. Just like, I don't care. Like, and hopefully this is the last we ever see of George Santos. And hopefully New York Dems get together and actually figure out to research their candidates next time. Anyways, speaking of things, let's move on to an actual L. MSNBC has canceled Mehdi Hasan's show. MSNBC announced major changes to its weekend lineup on Thursday, canceling the Sunday show hosted by Mehdi Hasan, debuting an ensemble show that will air weekend mornings. This change, which will take effect in January 13th, will alter almost every hour of the weekend, where MSNBC has struggled in the ratings for years through a series of lineup revamps. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that this is very much in response to the fact that Mehdi Hasan has been the one anchor on MSNBC that has been the closest thing to good, especially when it comes to issues like Israel-Palestine, which is an issue that he's been very much focusing on a lot recently. Which is true, but it's also probably like one of many factors. Like one of the other factors is simply put ratings. As they say, like ratings on the weekends were just not good for them in general. So naturally they were going to make some changes. Though granted, of course, due to his political leanings, naturally he would be the first to go. That's usually how it is. It's like a combination of ratings and whether or not they like the person or not. Similar sentiment was made, well actually, this isn't even necessarily true because I think, if I remember correctly, it was like, the one comparison they've been making is to Phil Donahue, who was very critical of the Iraq War, and then he got his show canceled. But if I remember correctly, Phil Donahue was actually one of the top shows on MSNBC at the time. This doesn't affect me much because I don't watch MSNBC. I don't watch cable news in general. I mean, I literally don't even watch TV, actually. But it is an issue nonetheless. Speaking of issues and Palestine-related stuff, we got an update on the countless efforts of AIPAC to get rid of Rashida Tlaib. So it turns out that another Senate candidate named Nasser Bidon has announced that he was offered the same deal that Hill Harper got to run against Rashida Tlaib. And with that, it reveals that this is the third person that they have tried to get to run against Rashida Tlaib. Because if you remember, first they wanted to get Adam Hollier to run. Then they wanted to get Nasser Bidon to run. And then they went to Hill Harper. Now you might be wondering, but what's the big things about it? Like, well, let's take a look at these three candidates. Adam Hollier, black candidate, and is a lot more in line with traditional Democrats. Then we have Nasser, who is an Arab, but is also more right-leaning, as he actually tried to seek the GOP nomination for Michigan Senate back in 2006. But I guess this is the one issue that he wasn't right-leaning. And then lastly, they went to Hill Harper. And each of them were going to try and tackle a different angle to run against Rashida. You see, Adam Hollier was, of course, black candidate, so he was going to run to ideally get a bunch of the black population in that district to vote for him, possibly trying to stoke some racial tensions in the area, and combine that with, like, I'm like a real Democrat. Rashida, she's not. Nasser was seemingly trying to be the one, like, they were trying to get Nasser to be the one to kind of be, like, an Arab, like, candidate. Like, when I say that, I mean, like, to be more of a traditional Arab candidate. Like, basically run stuff like, oh, she's not Muslim enough, or she's not Arab enough, or blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Usually, I would assume maybe trying to stoke some sort of, like, slight social issue problems. Then when that didn't work, they went with Hill Harper, who is basically the same as Rashida on all the issues, but again, is an African-American. So they're going to use the racial issues there, and hopefully assume that Hill Harper is less of a hardliner on Palestine like Rashida is. And all this is doing is just making Rashida look more based. Speaking of Rashida looking based, turns out she did the pretty based thing out there. Turns out there was an explicit bill in the United States House of Representatives on whether or not Israel had the right to exist. And sure enough, when the vote came, the vote was pretty lopsided. with all but 2 members of the United States House of Representatives voting for it. And the 2 that didn't vote for it were Rashida Tlaib and Thomas Massie. But in a weird twist, Thomas Massie voted nay, meanwhile Rashida voted present. Now, this actually shows a lot of things. For starters, one thing it showed is that Thomas Massie is really weird in regards to the issue of Israel, because I saw this in a tweet thread when he explained this, because he like Justin Amash explains basically all the votes that he does, and his explanation is, I agree with Israel's right to exist, but when you read the text of the bill, it says that all criticism of Israel is inherently anti-Semitic, and I cannot co-sign on that. Rashida voted present, and here's the thing about present votes. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Present votes are essentially where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't in regards to the vote. Where you're going to get flack, basically however you vote on the bill, so you vote present to explicitly just lower the threshold, but express disappointment on the bill. Now, I interpret Rashida's vote on the bill as this, because with that logic, let's talk about it like this. Rashida is saying that she does not explicitly think that Israel has a right to exist. But she's not going to vote against that because she doesn't explicitly I don't want Israel to exist. Which, if you know her stance on the Israel-Palestine issue, you would understand this. She's in favor of a one-state solution. I assume the lefty kumbaya version, we get to have the land of Judea, and everybody has the right to return, and all that kind of stuff. But even the ones who voted for it expressed this is stupid. Jamal Bowman, quote, saying, it seems like we vote on some form of this resolution every other week. Do Palestinians have a right to exist? Is someone going to write that resolution? And when it's written, are we going to vote on it? Or are we going to continue to have one conversation without the other? And I made that joke as well, where I said, boy, I can't wait for next week for them to vote on whether Palestine has the right to exist. But they are not going to do that because they don't want Palestine to exist. And it's just so blatant. This conflict has just been so blatant in regards to that. Where it's just they genuinely do not want Palestine to exist. They want Israel to exist. And they're essentially signing off on ethnic cleansing. That's all they're doing. And I know this for a fact because of something that happened quite recently. Andre Carson posted a picture on his Twitter, where he was holding a candlelight vigil for Palestinian and Israeli, victims of the attacks in this conflict that's been going on right now. It was him, Cori Bush, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Barbara Lee, Ayanna Pressley, and Nydia Velasquez. It was them and 2 other people who were not members of Congress. Meanwhile, when there was a candlelight vigil for the victims of, the Israeli victims of the conflict, just the Israeli victims, basically the entirety of Congress showed up. And remember, Andre Carson's vigil was for Israeli and Palestinian victims. It wasn't Palestine only. It was for victims on both sides of the conflict. It is literally like the fucking SpongeBob meme. You remember the SpongeBob meme where he flips the sign and then all the people show up? It's literally that. And it is genuinely just so depressing. They genuinely do not care about Palestinians at all. And yet they're going to somehow claim they have the moral high ground. Genuinely. This is not going to be good for Israel. Because in the short term, they might win. But in the long term, they are fucking losing. Because there is going to be so much fucking anti-Zionist stuff after this conflict is over that it will be so hard to even fathom. Genuinely, I'll even say it right now. At the beginning of this conflict, I didn't identify as a Zionist or anti-Zionist. But after all this, literally, I'm so close to just saying fuck it, just full on anti-Zionism, whatever. And Israel's got nobody to blame but themselves. But anyways, on that track, let's move on to the main topic of this video. We're going to be going over the state of the left in this year leading into next year. Now, it comes as no secret that I, Pluribus Unum, am part of the political left. If this is surprising to you, you must be a newcomer, but if you're a person who's been here for a while, this should be no surprise to you whatsoever. I think that ultimately the left has the best interests of the world at heart, and we need to do anything we can to make leftism win to fix the world's problems, be it through electoral politics, direct actions like protests, rallies, educating people about our ideas, whatever else. And there's a little bit of a conflicting narrative in regards to the left, where somehow the left is in complete control of everything, and yet also that the left is failing or losing. Now, that cannot be further from the truth. 57% of the American people want Medicare for all. 54% of Americans ages 18 to 34 have a positive view on socialism, 56% in the UK, and 61% in Australia. Only 32% of the American people now support Israel, when back in the day that was very much unfathomable. Left-wing politicians keep winning. We have 197 DSA electeds. The squad and squad-adjacent politicians are expanding in the Democratic caucus. Even centrist Democrats have to pretend that they support certain left-wing positions to get elected. Like, you would be hard-pressed to find any single Democratic candidate's campaign site that doesn't say they support healthcare as a right. We know that they don't necessarily mean that 100% because of their actions when they actually get into Congress, but the fact that they even have to run rhetorically like us shows that we have more strength than we realize. And another thing is left-wing content creators are growing, which, if at the very least, they can help push the dialogue for our ideas. But there is to a degree where it actually can translate into broader political action, such as person you might not like, Vosh, using his platform to spread stuff like progressive victory, which has been helping people get organized into political candidates especially in down the ballot races where people might not actually be paying attention. And this is just in America. Worldwide, things are also a bit interesting. Now, do we always win? No, but even the L's that we take are not actually that bad in retrospect. Nida Alam lost? That's only because the Zionist lobby literally spent $2.7 million into Valerie Foushee, and for some reason, leftists in North Carolina were focusing heavily on Erica Smith's candidacy, even though she was a fraud. One of the furthest left general election candidates, Mandela Barnes, lost? Yeah, by like 1 freaking point. Not actually that bad in retrospect. And I don't even get it. There are some people who are still at this point trying to go, oh, Mandela Barnes, he lost this race. It's by 1 point. Democrats were spending tons of money on other candidates that didn't even come remotely close to Barnes. And the biggest ones of all, Bernie Sanders lost the presidential election twice? Well, first time was because of flat out tipping the scales against him, and the second time was again through weird tipping scales at the last minute coalescing around Joe Biden, and the fact that COVID-19 happened right as voting was starting. If any other situation were to happen, Bernie would be the nominee and Bernie would be president right now. If we were able to fumble around correctly, then maybe we could have actually managed to pull through that loss. I mean, as far as I've been saying, the left is doing pretty well, all things considered. Now, I would even go so far as to say that if the left plays our cards right, 2024 can be the year the left wins. Not for now, not until the next election, but I genuinely believe that 2024 is the election to decide the future. This election will be a referendum on the future, because the right is making it a referendum. The right is trying to make this a we need to go back to the past election. The left, if we play our cards right, we can make this a future election, the election of how the future of the country will play out. And of course, if we are the ones in charge of that, then we're going to be changing things very big. I'll come back to this in a second, but before we get into that, we need to acknowledge some things, because as I mentioned a lot of the good things, I need to acknowledge some of the bad things that have been going on. First, DSA. Technically, DSA electeds shrank, and membership in general shrank. Currently, there is no candidate slate for the left in the upcoming election. A lot of the lefty content creators that I praised before, some of them are not really up to snuff, especially for basically anybody. Many on the left are just openly talking about repeating failures of yesteryear. The one site that used to be very good for the left to organize and get social movements ready, Twitter, has been completely destroyed. We lost a bastion of the left with the British Labour Party. And while the left has gotten more radical, so too has the right, especially on LGBTQ rights in Israel. The question is, why? And there are a lot of reasons as to why. First, infighting, the left's biggest fault. DSA's factions warring against each other make some weary of, people. Some of the caucuses are so dramatically opposed, it's actually weird to see them focused together in one organization. Even though that's kind of the whole purpose of DSA, to unite all these different factions of the left together, some still seem a little too diametrically opposed. And don't even get me started on the people who are on the left that are outside of the DSA, whether they be the Greens, Communist Party, PSL, etc. Or even ones that think that the DSA is too far left. A lot of this is very confusing, and us fighting amongst yourselves is a big problem when we're supposed to be trying to unite to stop the evils of fascism and capitalism. Grifters are another problem the left has, and unfortunately, the left still has quite a few of them. Every year, the so-called new bastions of hope that we have end up becoming just more grifters. Let's take a look at a lot of them. Reportedly, biggest left-wing account on Twitter, quote-unquote, is Jackson Hinkle, who is a literal fascist and is going to be, and even though he's a literal fascist, he calls himself a communist, so he's going to be representative of what people consider communism, and by extension, leftism. On YouTube, the largest account is Second Thought, who has been kind of getting a bit weird in a lot of his most recent videos. Ranging from that video on authoritarianism, basically glancing over the most authoritarian regime in the history of the world, specifically so he can make a point, when people call these left-wing groups authoritarian, that's actually demeaning of the left in general. Basically, USSR good and not authoritarian, because authoritarianism is a meaningless word. Then he also made the brilliant statement of saying that there were no innocents that were killed by Hamas. Then he made another interesting statement where he would retweet a literal fascist about Israel. And the biggest left-wing account on Twitch is Hasan, who's a mixed bag, all things considered. Basically, it's just some of his rhetoric is good, some of it is a little cringe, and then also, is this guy really the person we're going to choose to represent socialism? Why is the candidate slate looking pretty bleak? Well, simply put, the left is going to be on defense. If you've been paying attention to the stories, the squad is basically going to be completely on the defensive in this upcoming election cycle. Despite the fact that we've been seeing a ton of openings on the Democratic side, we just have not really been able to find candidates for those seats. And I've also heard whispers that Justice Democrats, the organization that has kind of been the bankroller for most of the so-called left wing in the Democratic Party, AOC and basically the rest of the squad, basically apparently they might be running out of money, so they're not really getting enough to roll in to find out more candidates. And the biggest issue, and I think this is one of the biggest ones, I take actually some pride in, and this is why I genuinely believe that the next cycle is legitimately really big. Because, you ever notice, why is the GOP openly trying to undermine the democratic process? Why do you think the Zionist propaganda is reaching for straws in recent years and getting more explicitly blatant on what they want? Why do you think Elon Musk had to buy Twitter to kill it? Why do you think that they're targeting the entire squad for 2024 as opposed to wanting to pick them off one by one like they did in yesteryears. Why do you think pro-Palestinian voices are being silenced in the media? Why? It's because the empire sees its death right around the corner and is doing everything in its power to fight it. They see that the left is getting way more powerful than they've ever been in American history. And they know if we're on equal footing with them, they can't win. That is a 100% fact. When everybody who is of legal age to vote is able to vote, the left wins. Politicians in office right now rely on voter apathy. They rely on people who don't pay attention to politics. They rely on people who don't go out to vote. Even protesters. If you don't vote, your protest is meaningless. If you go to a politician and say, I'm never voting for you because of this thing that you did, it's like, okay, cool. They don't care. But if you say, I might not vote for you, then they'll care. And if you can't get everybody in that protest to, agree, single-minded good candidates to replace them, then they also don't care. But if there is a candidate in that protest that is running for that candidate's seat, then all of a sudden they care. And the empire sees this because we're getting smarter. Like lefties, even though some of us are not that smart, some of us are getting legitimately smarter. We're getting candidates to show up at rallies. We're getting candidates to openly explain, we support these issues. And we're getting more well organized, whether it be through direct action or otherwise. And the empire sees that they will fall if they don't do anything to stop it. It's the same thing they did with Bernie. They tried to pull the rug under him right when he was at the point of getting the ability to beat them. But unlike then, Bernie ain't the only one. They have to go against a lot of things. They have to shut down protests. They have to shut down the media. They have to shut down everything. It's not just single presidential candidates that they can stop. They have to stop a lot of things. Back then it was easy. You just have to derail the fucking, presidential candidates. But now, there ain't no presidential candidates. Oh, we're gonna derail Marianne Williamson. Who cares? Nobody's voting for Marianne Williamson anyways. And their resources might be spread too thin. That's where we can swoop in. What can you do to actually do anything? For starters, get your shit together. That's the one thing I need to say about the left. No matter what side of the left you are on, revolutionary, communist, socialist, sock them, whatever the fuck. Get your shit together. Get our shit together. That's one of the big things. Because, one of the big things that is a very bad issue with the left and, left center, left-leaning people in general, is that sometimes we just like to fight. We like to argue. But it's dude, just genuinely get your shit together. Next thing, avoid grifters on online left. Unavoidable task. This is unavoidable, but at least try, or at least be more willing to be in scrutiny and criticize figures. For example, all of them. Don't think, oh, this creator is great. No, don't think any of them are great. Watch them, get the information, don't put them on a pedestal. For example, there's a chance that you guys might have gotten offended when I shit-talked Hasan, or when I shit-talked Second Thought. No, who cares? I don't care. I don't care if I criticize them. I don't care if you criticize people that I like. I don't care. It's just, who cares? They're people. You're allowed to criticize them. Don't base your entire ethics on, oh, this streamer or this person said this thing, ergo I'm going to do this. Or, I hate this streamer, so I'm going to spend all my time doing this. If you fucking revolutionary leftists spent as much time actually organizing for your cause rather than shit-talking Vosh or shit-talking AOC on Twitter, then you probably would have actually gotten something done. Make sure people are informed, whether it be on current affairs, world affairs, domestic, whatever, local. Make sure people are well informed. It might do something to get them more worldly so they understand broader issues, or it might do something even as small as keep them motivated. Oh, this country's able to elect this prominent leftist leader, so why can't we? Now this one's big. Find progressive and leftist candidates and push for them in the primaries. I've been trying to do that. I've been looking for a ton of candidates to support. And right now, I'm just going to list some target seats for 2024. Senate, California, and Michigan are 100% targets for the left. Then, open blue seats. Alabama District 2, Arizona 3, California 12, California 16, California 29, California 30, California 31, California 47, Delaware at large, Maryland District 3, Maryland District 6, Michigan District 7, Michigan District 8, Minnesota District 3, New Jersey District 3, New York District 26, Oregon District 3, Texas District 18, Texas District 32, Virginia District 7, Virginia District 10, and Washington District 6. Those are open blue seats. Literally, find candidates for them. I'll even tell you, here are the ones that I have for open blue seats for the House. In California 12, Denard Ingram is 100% backed by me. Angela Maria Duenas in the 29th District of California. Maybe a girl in the 30th District of California. Then there's some candidates that I haven't really figured out 100% if they're good or not, but they're at least decent enough for me to mention them. Raquel Tehran and Yasamin Ansari in Arizona District 3. Eugene Young in the Delaware District. Then in Oregon District 3, we have Sushila Jayapal, and in Virginia's District 7, we have Elizabeth Guzman. The rest of them, I either don't have a candidate in that is actually running, or there's really nothing there. And Alabama District 2, I will just say one thing. There's a candidate in the race named James Overhart, and top priority, make sure he loses. He's the guy who tortured Chelsea Manning. Fuck him. And for the Senate races, we all know who I'm endorsing in those ones. Hill Harper in Michigan and Barbara Lee in California. The rest of the districts, there currently is either no candidate running that is good, or there's candidates running that I haven't really necessarily looked into. But for example, Michigan District 8, there's a candidate named Pamela Pugh, that is running in the district. And from what I gathered, she seemed fine, but I haven't really looked further into her, at the moment. And she's kind of removed the issues page on her website when she revamped to run for Congress. So, I don't know. In New York District 26, there's rumors that India Walton might run for the seat. So, that would be good. And next, we have some primary seats. These are primaries that, these are just districts that I think we should primary. For whatever reason or whatever, I just genuinely say we should primary them. So here are the ones that I think we should primary. They have an incumbent. The incumbent is safely running, but we should try backing candidates in those anyways. California 34, Illinois 7, Texas 7, New Hampshire 1, New York 10, New York 15, New York 18, New Jersey 5, Nevada 3, Texas 28, Florida 9, Florida 22, Florida 23, Florida 24, Florida 25, California 52, Minnesota 2, Maine 2, Michigan 11, Washington 3, and Tennessee 9. The only candidates I am backing are in the first three ones, David Kim, Keena Collins, and Pervez S. Angwam. These are the most insufferable incumbents for Democrats and the ones that actually have a chance of flipping for primary, so, whatever. And lastly, we have some flippable House seats. Arizona 1, Arizona 6, California 13, 22, 27, 40, 45, Colorado 3, Iowa 3, Michigan 10, Montana 1, Nebraska 2, New Jersey 7, New York 1, 3, 4, 17, 19, 22, Oregon 5, Pennsylvania 1, and Virginia 2. Now, there are some of these ones that you might be confused about because there's some of them that it's but I thought a progressive was already running in those seats. For example, Oregon 5 has Jamie McLeod Skinner. She's not a progressive, screw her. She's endorsed by Richie Torres. One strike, you're out. She never ran on any platform, and she's endorsed by Richie Torres now. Fuck her, I don't care. I'm sick and tired of people gravitating towards these fucking bullshit candidates that are just not all remotely left-wing, and, for some reason, lefties just look, yes, they just want a victory so bad, they're just yes, we'll endorse them. It's not even general election, we gotta pick the better candidate for the general election. It's just no. You have an options now, so why don't you pick any good options now? And another one of these districts is Mondaire Jones, but no, he's essentially just jumped on the establishment's cock, so no. Endorsed by Pat Ryan, another Zionist cocksucker in Congress, so one strike you're out. The only district here that I actually have a candidate that I might be interested in is Arizona 1 with Amish Shah, but there really isn't much that I know about him as of yet. And the last piece of advice that I think the left needs to learn is this. Just very big, basic. No matter the results of the primary, look at the candidates and just objectively remember, top priority for 2024, it's the election that decides the future. One side is openly running on fascism, reactionaryism. Do you want that to win or not? If you do, then your options are very simple. If you don't have any other options. You have one. And we should take that option, vote to stop fascism. And this is something that I'm going to expand on next week's episode. Because if you know me, it's not that, just the end all be all. You also need to push them forward, push them further. I don't care if you vote one way in this election, and then, the day after, you're on the streets saying this is a fascist evil person. It's I don't care. But not before, and not the day of. I'll expand more on this in the next episode, when I officially reveal who I am endorsing for the 2024 elections, even though at this point you all know the answer. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or consider supporting me on Patreon.